Tom and Don, tie together your two works, Witness to Roswell with two subtitles, of course.
Yes. I would. First, I'm going to give ourselves a little pat on the back.
Good. You deserve it.
Our two books. The first one came out in 2007, Witness to Roswell, Uncovering the 60-Year Cover-Up. And that book it became the number one selling UFO book in the world for the next 2 years, 2007 and 2008. So in those 2 years, we had accumulated new information, right? A lot. We're still on the case. So we decided to do a second edition, expanded and updated, and revised with new chapters and other chapters revised and updated. And I called our publisher this past week to find out how it's doing, and it came out last year in 2009, and it is right now among the top-selling UFO books in the world as we speak.
Good for you.
The feedback we're getting on it, starting with the first book and then continuing into the second book, is that we hear this over and over and over again, that it's the best book on Roswell ever written. And we thank you, George, for contributing to the second book.
Oh, that was my pleasure. When you both asked me to do that, it was a delight, and I'm glad that worked out for both of you.
Well, we certainly appreciate it.
Now, you've segmented the unmasking. 2007, Witness came out first, Witness to Roswell, then the second one, Witness to Roswell, Unmasking the Government's Biggest Cover-Up in 2009, as you've said. Tell me the difference between the two in the direction you both took with it.
Well, as the investigation has even developed in these past 20 years, it's been this mosaic, this puzzle of piecing each individual witness testimony into the whole, general historic event. And as even conceived with both books, we felt that in the past we had merely presented the information. We had filled in a lot of those voids, a lot of speculation on our part. And here we allowed the witnesses to just speak for themselves, just as we had with Arthur in the first segment. And give you an example, even leading up to, that particular flight, the Straight Flush,
mm-hmm.
and how we piece things together.
I love that name, by the way, for a plane.
The Straight Flush. Well,
I never seem to get any of them, but that's okay.
But if we recall the original testimony of the rancher Mac Brazel and his description to KGFL radio reporter Frank Joyce about it being horrible, and finally he said the smell, the stench, it was just horrible. Well, that's a common as even describing the nurse with Glenn Dennis, the smell, the overwhelming odor that was coming from the cadavers. And then the need to, remove the carcasses as far away from the base as possible before they were, flown out, as described on the Straight Flush, as we've now surmised. But there was a corporal, he was a Native American by the name of Edward Harrison, who we interviewed. And he was in charge of a small detachment of Native Americans, and they were ordered to report. This was the night before the Straight Flush flew out.
Mm-hmm.
And they were ordered to report to the far southwest corner of the base, of the tarmac, way down as far removed from the general base operation area as possible. And they had a special duty assignment, as they were told, and it was at the very time of the incident, and that's how we were able to piece it precisely in that timeline the night before. Well, anyway, they were surprised that when they came to the site, they were met by none other than their very commanding officer, who was Lieutenant Colonel John Loomis of the 1027th Air Material Squadron. Well, anyway, he was sitting in a parked Jeep in front of an erected 8-foot-tall a wire fence, a chain link fence. and inside the fence was an Army tent. And what was so surprising to them was it had not been there before. Here it was, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he was basically told to post the guard, and they were told by Colonel Loomis, shoot anything that isn't a rabbit, as he put it. And granted, this wasn't unusual for the nature of the base with the atomic bomb and everything. But again, what was unusual was the fact that here was this fence with this tent inside it. And he would leave his guard behind and then return back the next morning with more guards to relieve them. And the fence is gone, the tent is gone, the guards are gone. And the only thing left were heavy tire tracks, aircraft tire tracks, that circled around the soft ground, and which direction were they headed? Towards the bomb pits. And then we have, as far as that crate actually loaded up that very same afternoon.
I mean, that crate story is incredible. The security around it and everything else.
Precisely. And again, but piecing it all together, the chain of events, and it clearly suggests something truly extraordinary.
I think so too. You had in the sequel, The Witness to Roswell, the one that just came out. You've got a number of players that you've been talking to and following that all add something to the story. Let's go through some of them real quickly, okay? The Air Force hitman again, Hunter Penn, sent to.
Oh yes, Hunter Penn. Now, when this occurred, of course, as far as the military was concerned, it was easy to contain the story. They shipped certain airmen out to other bases. They held meetings in hangars of the entire squadron in some cases, and the commander would get up there and say, "Fellas, whatever you think is going on isn't going on." And if you want to read about it, you can read about it in Leavenworth. So the message was clear not to talk ever about this again. The problem was the controlling the civilians who were either eyewitnesses or who knew about the bodies, especially in some way.
Were there many people?
Well, yes. Normally, in rural New Mexico, when there's an air crash, the civilians get there first. They pocket souvenirs and what have you. And yes, there were many civilians that got to there were 3 crash sites, as we believe, and quite a number of them got to one or more of those.
And what do you think happened, by the way? How could these objects come from, gosh knows how many light years away, probably in a mothership, I would guess. But what happened to them? How did they crash?
Well, that question is often asked, George. How could it come from Alpha Centauri, let's say, all the way to Earth only to crash? How could that happen? Well, the answer is we don't know. We can speculate.
Yeah.
That based on witness testimony, starting with Mac Brazel and some of his neighbors, that there was a heavy thunder and lightning storm on the evening of July the 3rd, 1947. And if you've ever been in New Mexico at this time, you've never seen lightning like this. At least I haven't, coming from the Philadelphia area. I've never seen lightning like this. And so Mac and a few of the neighbors thought they heard an explosion